From the Fidelity Bank Foundation studio, PBS Kansas presents One-on-One with Victor Hogstrom.
This is where the movers and shakers of Kansas come to talk about their lives, their careers, and lessons learned along the way. This week's guest is a truth seeker and justice warrior who has emerged as a leading voice in Wichita's African American community. Born to parents who sought opportunity, she carries their legacy of determination. From high school journalism to the helm of a vital community paper, her journey is one of resilience and vision. Bonita Gooch, publisher of the Community Voice, has transformed local media, championing Black voices and fostering community connection. Join us as we explore her life, her passion, and the power of journalism to drive change on this edition, One-on-One. Hello, and thank you for joining us. I'm delighted to welcome journalist, publisher, and community leader, Bonita Gooch, to the program. Bonita, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. Your parents migrated from Tennessee to Wichita, seeking opportunity. How did their experience shape your understanding of community and ambition?
Well, you know, I'm not a young lady, and
but
so
you look it.
Thank you. But you know, times were really different then. You know, when in Wichita, and it was a very small and tight-knit community. And you've heard people say that, you know, you better act good because somebody knew your mother or father, and they tell your mother and father if you were not doing well. And so it was that kind of community. It really was in Wichita. It was a very tight-knit group of people, and which my parents were active in and leaders in, you know. And at that point, Mom was really the one that was the forefront of it because she was the school teacher, and you know, those were the kind of roles that African American women had if you were a professional. And so she was well known in the community and very active in the community. And I saw that growing up, you know, that she was very active in the community. My dad, Rip Gooch, didn't get very active in the community until much later. But I did see from him that entrepreneurship, because he was an early entrepreneur, and about hard work, and that it took to be a success and what you had to do to make it.
So what then was growing up like for you?
Well, we were what you would call middle-class people, but we didn't know we were middle-class people. We might have thought we were rich, you know, for considering things. But, you know, we didn't have an abundance, but we had what we needed. Unlike today where kids want so much more, we were very happy with what we received. You know, expectations weren't nearly as high that you would have so much, but we were expected to go to college. You know, expectations were high. I mean, you were supposed to do well in school. You were, as a young lady, supposed to do certain things that young ladies did then, you know, that were appropriate for young ladies. So you didn't go out in the streets and act up. So it was just a different, great time to be raised in Wichita. I was really pleased that I was here.
It was the old-fashioned bringing up, I would say, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It was playing outside till dark, all those things that you hear about. It was that. You know, you went to your friend's house and played. We walked places. That's the thing my daughter doesn't quite get. We walked places, and your parents didn't mind. So it was just great. It was a great place to grow up.
So as a result of all of that upbringing, who is Bonita Gooch today from those influences?
Wow. Yeah, good values were taught, you know, very strong values were taught at home too. Working hard to achieve those things I've maintained over the years. Obviously the sense of community, is something I've maintained. Those are the things I am. Just equal, treat people fairly, communicate with all people, be friendly to all kinds of people. Those are the kind of things we were taught, that we weren't really, we may have thought we were rich, but we didn't think we were better than, you know?
Right. Mm-hmm. When you were growing up, you had an interest as a teenager in journalism. Mm-hmm. I'm curious now, how did that come about? What sparked it?
I started in journalism at North High School, and again, we didn't know much about what careers were out there. You know, you were a teacher, you were a doctor, you were a lawyer if you had a degree. We didn't know much else. And I had some friends who were taking a journalism class, and they told me how much fun it was. Hey, sounded like something to do to me. Fun class, great. So I just started. It was my first journalism class, then my next journalism class, and just started enjoying it. Worked on the newspaper staff, worked on the yearbook staff, was editor of the yearbook my last year there, and just began to like journalism and some of the fun things that they said came along with it. I really did think it was fun, and I still do. I still enjoy what I do.
And so this was at North High, and you were involved in journalism, but you also worked with the Wichita Times.
Yes, I sure did. Jack Hudson, who till his death about a year or so ago, still considered himself as my mentor, and I considered him as a mentor. He was very proud of what I had done from what he started me on. He had the Wichita Times, and I worked for him during my high school years. And I tell people that term stripper. I don't know if you've ever heard that term, but that was back in the old days before everything was computerized. There was a job where you would go down and take these little long strips of text. They would run them out on a machine, and a stripper would cut them all out and lay them down on strips on the sheets and then they would shoot them back. And so I worked every week.
So
I would
those made up the columns on the
right,
paper?
the columns.
Okay.
Yeah, you got a whole long strip,
right.
And you take them and you cut them up and you strip them, and then you take the little X-Acto knife and you go, and the lines in between, you use a little tape to put them down. And so I was a stripper. Okay. As a high school student.
Be careful how you say that today. Right?
Okay, I know, but that's what it was called. I tell high school students and college kids that when I speak to them that I used to be a stripper. But I did that and did a little bit of writing for him. You know, and a few little celebrities came to town, and I got to interview them. That was fun, and so it kept me going and kept me interested and gave me a little money in my pocket.
Okay, so as you were growing up with your father, Rip Gooch, who's also been on this program, he was in aviation, and you were enjoying flying with him. So how did that impact your perspective on possibilities? Your father, a pilot, he sold airplanes, he was in the city council, state senator. Wow.
Yeah, but now when I was here, Dad was a low-key one. Like I tell you, Mom was the go-getter. She was in everything. And so Dad was just out there working hard, and you know, we didn't quite understand what he did, but we did enjoy the benefits of getting to fly around in airplanes and private airplanes all the time. But you know, we just thought that was normal. It wasn't anything special because we'd always done it. The thing that I was most scared of after I'd flown around in little planes was getting in a big jet. I was like, oh my, I don't think I want to do that because we've flown in little planes so much. Right. So, yeah, but Dad really wasn't active in city council, all those things. Mom was the influence. Dad was working hard. He was at that business for sure 6 to 7 days a week. And Mom was the one that was really involved in the community in the early days. Dad started in the city council after I left Wichita. I was gone for 20 years. Yeah. I left here right out of high school.
You mean they let you go?
Yeah, I went. And and really didn't think I was going to come back. You know, I had enjoyed living in Wichita and being raised in Wichita, and I thought it was a great place to grow up, but of course I wanted to go see bigger things. And so I did.
Well, that brings to mind the question, what brought you back?
The same reason I left, because it was a nice small town and it was a great place that I felt to raise, that I grew up, and I had a daughter. I was a single mom, and I thought it'd be a great place to raise her, and it did prove to be that.
Okay. You initially pursued a career, coming back to journalism now, in journalism, and then you shifted to public administration. Mm-hmm. What led to that shift, and then back to journalism? So tell the story.
Well, as soon as I graduated from college, I got an offer for a job in journalism, and journalists then weren't getting paid very much money. Right. And I was like, I can't live off of this money. I better go back to school and get a real job. And, you know, and then opportunities, you still have to understand, were somewhat limited in those days. I mean, things have just gotten so much better, but opportunities were fairly limited. And so I just went back and decided I need to go find somewhere where I could go make a living. And that's why I went back to public administration. Again, the same thing. Somebody said, here's a good career, and I gave it a try. It was interesting.
Did you ever think about becoming a pilot?
No. You know, we all had to learn to fly, and we all soloed on our 16th birthdays.
You can fly an airplane too?
No, I can't fly an airplane. I learned then to do a little bit. And I did go back and try again to do it on my own. But no, I'm pretty content with letting someone else fly me somewhere.
Okay, so then you became publisher, owner of the Community Voice.
Right.
Back into journalism.
Right.
What happened? How did that happen?
Again, after I graduated, remember, I decided very quickly after a 3-week internship that I had to go back to college and get a master's degree so I could make a living. So I really hadn't done anything with my journalism other than, you know, a little bit of writing and communications in some of my positions. Mm-hmm. So when I came back to Wichita, I really wasn't sure what I was going to do. I really didn't. You know, my brother had died, and he was the one that had been here in Wichita with the family, and that was also part of the reason why I came back. Nobody was here. I knew Mom and Dad were starting to age, and so that's part of the reason I came back, and really wasn't sure what I was going to do. I really wasn't. And here comes Rip Gooch with, Billy McCrae has this newspaper he wants to sell, and I think you should buy it. And I laughed. And he kept at me, and he just kept at me. And the joke forever was, Dad said, if you do it, I'll help. Well, I didn't get much help, but that was enough to convince me. And he did. He helped in lots of ways. He really did. He was always a very strong moral supporter and of what we were doing, and opened some doors for us along the way. So that's kind of how I got back into it. And I would have never thought it was going to be something I would have enjoyed so much. But obviously, I am now coming up on 30 years. I'm on my 29th year running the Community Voice as the publisher of the Community Voice.
So what was the state of affairs of the Community Voice when you took it over?
Oh, it wasn't much. Billy had the paper for just a little over a year. And when he started wanting to sell it. And so it wasn't much. I think it was a monthly. Billy didn't have a journalism background. He was just doing something with it. And I remember the first issue I came out with, everybody was just so amazed. Well, it wasn't that wonderful, but it was a step up from what Billy had done. And people really were very pleased and supportive by it. But it wasn't much of a paper at the time.
So when you took it over, what goals and objectives did you have in mind for it? What did you hope to make it?
I just hope, there was a gentleman named Mr. Sims, I learned early on, that had a paper and I looked at, there's a history of, I don't know if you know, a long history of African American papers in Wichita. And if you just look at the list, you'd be amazed. But one of the ones who had a paper the longest was Mr. Sims. And Mr. Sims had his paper, I think, for about 35 years. Oh. And I remember when I saw that, I thought, if I could make it as long as Mr. Sims, I would have done something, because nobody else did more than a few years, 5 years, something like that. So that was an objective, to see just, can we survive? Can we be here? But more than that, I mean, quickly, in those days, this was pre-internet, it was pre-email, it was pre-everybody walking around with a computer in their hands. So there was a real desire for information that was specific to the African American audience. And so we really did want to fill a void that existed, because, we weren't getting a lot of coverage at the time on the TV stations. We didn't have a radio station that we could use and communicate. There was no way for our community to connect very well. And so it did fill a really big void.
And then, well, first you have about 6 more years to go to reach that 35-year mark. Mm-hmm. But you have done something even great for the paper. You expanded it into KCK. Mm-hmm.
Well, actually, the whole Kansas City metro area. We're just not KCK, we do KCMO, and we still cover, we still cover the state of Kansas too. Okay. And so, when we went to the Kansas City market, we were just going to try to sneak in there and stay on the Kansas side and hope nobody got too upset that we showed up. And immediately people were like, can we get that paper over here? Can we? And these were the Missouri people. Right. And I said, well, give me a little time. And we were only there about a year on the Kansas side before we expanded into the Missouri side as well.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So do you see, Bonita, do you see yourself more as a business person or a journalist?
I wished I could be one or the other, but I can't. I mean, we're a small operation, and I have to do, we're having to do it all. And so I think I'm a decent journalist. I mean, I'm not a star, I put together a story and communicate well to my audience, but I don't think of myself as a Pulitzer Prize winning journalist. But I do speak to what our community needs. And right now I'm working very hard at trying to be a very good publisher and business owner, because you have to. To survive now in the conditions of journalism, you've got to be a creative, hardworking person. It's not getting easier, it's getting much more complex and involved.
So what are the challenges?
Oh boy, well, you've seen it. I mean, newspapers are disappearing. Yep. Yeah, they are. So to survive, again, you can't, for one, just be a newspaper. You have to be so much more. I remember when the internet first came out, and I'm part of the Kansas Newspaper Publishers Association, and I remember all of us thinking, oh, that digital stuff, nobody will ever want that. I remember we all just thought, no way. And so now what we're learning is we have to be part of that. I mean, I think more and more digital for us, and to survive, you have to be a very strong digital publication. You have to be a social media influencer. You have to be an engagement person, a community engagement officer. There's so many more things to it.
So with all of the goings on in news and public affairs today, what is your perception of journalism today and in the future? Mm-hmm.
Again, journalism will be multi-platform. It's not going to be just one something. Journalism is going to be so many more things. Journalism, I think, is going to start speaking more and more to individuals and more targeted audiences. And again, just not one thing, and who is a journalist and who is communicating. We started to see, podcasters and you've seen them, podcasters and influencers. They're actually starting to be journalists. They really are. And so you have to start thinking that kind of way as well. Where we didn't do anything but print, now we have to do video, we have to do audio. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You're having to have multi-platforms and multi-channels to survive. You just can't sit in one lane.
Okay, Bonita, we always play a little game on this program.
Okay.
Tell me what comes to mind, the first thing that comes to mind when I say a word.
Okay.
Your first word is Wichita.
A great place to live.
Voice.
The community voice.
Yeah, okay. Then community.
A great group of people that I enjoy supporting and connecting with.
Legacy.
I hope I leave a good one.
What do you hope for that to be?
I hope we're somebody, or an organization that made a difference. I hope we helped improve some lives along the way. More than just being appreciated. It's easy to say, oh, we appreciate you, but we really want to make a difference.
That would be a good legacy. Next word is airplane.
Fly. My nephew is my airplane connection now. Okay. Who's a pilot. But other than airplane, Rip Gooch maybe. How about that?
Your
airplane.
Dad.
Yeah, Rip Gooch.
Okay. News.
Lots of it. All the time. 24 hours a day. That's that news cycle anymore.
All right. Family.
Love.
Opportunity.
Plentiful.
Change.
Rapid.
Oh boy. And the last word is hope.
I hope this country and this planet survives.
That this country and this
the planet
survive. Wow. Why? That intrigues me and has piqued my curiosity now. So why are you hoping that? Because that's pretty big.
Because I think we're challenged. We really are. I'm really concerned. I could speak to what's going on in our country today, but I'm really concerned about what's going on our planet. I really am, and I tell my daughter that I'm not going to be here, but you guys got to be here, and I just don't think we're doing nearly enough to save our planet and protect it for our children in the future.
What do you believe is the unique and essential role of Black media in today's society?
Now that's one that goes back to this country right now kind of question. I think it's very important right now, more than it has been for a while. I think our community is looking for us to stand up and lead in this kind of strange time that's going on, and I'm seeing it. I'm seeing more, connections with our social media. I'm seeing a lot more page views. People are looking for somebody that they can trust to give them some information.
So, for an aspiring journalist, what advice would you give?
Anymore now, journalism isn't the terrible career it was when I started, when you didn't make money. So I tell them when I interview students that, don't discount journalism. I think that the salaries have gone up, but I will tell them, just be as versatile as you can, learn as much in as many different areas as you can. As we've talked about, we're multi-platform. you just can't come in and write. You know, you have to shoot photographs. You have to be able to edit and lay out. You have to be able to do podcasts. There's so many things you have to do. So learn as much as you can in as many different areas. But don't discount just plain old journalism and jump over to communications and PR.
We know that your parents influenced you, but setting them aside, who have inspired you throughout your life and career?
You know, of course, parents, and I have to keep saying that, but the young kids in my family, I'm very impressed with them. We have the generation below me. They're just doing amazing things, and I'm so pleased by what's going on in their lives. I have one daughter, my sister had a daughter, and my brother had a son, and they're just doing fantastic things. I'm inspired as I watch what they're doing and what they're accomplishing and what this next generation below us is accomplishing. I'm very impressed by that. You know, I do follow a few newspapers closely that I really admire what they're doing. I'm a Houston Defender fan, the Q City Metro. Those are a couple of my favorite publications for different reasons. And I'm impressed with what I'm seeing going on in the black press in general. They're doing some great things around the country.
On that note, Bonita Gooch, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Joining me one-on-one.
Okay, thank you. It went so fast.
It did.
Oh, my.
And it was good.
Okay, good. Thank you. I enjoyed. Thank you for having me, Victor.
And thank you for watching this edition of One-on-One. One-on-one@kpts.org is our email address if you have a question or comment. I'm Victor Hogstrom. Be well, and I'll see you again soon.